So in this video, I'd like to talk a little bit about the way that Google Classroom handles the permissions on documents when a teacher distributes an assignment, when a student is working on it in a draft phase, and then what happens when it's turned in formally using the turn in feature, and how that affects commenting and feedback when the teacher is wanting to assess the work. So on the left-hand side here, I have my teacher account, and on the right hand side here I have my student demonstration account. So I'm going to just make a demo assignment over here, and I'm not going to assign a template. I'm just going to post that to the group. Let me just change that over to an assignment. Sorry, 1 second. And have the student begin working on that assignment and then show how the permissions change as we go along. So here's this new assignment that the student has to work on called Demo. And I'm going to go ahead and click Create and Document so that it will name the assignment and allow the student to begin working on it. So here it is. It's called Demo. It's got the student's name, in this case test account. And the student can go in and begin working on it. So my student has started typing and working on it. What I can do now over here from the teacher side is go in and take a look at that assignment. So I'm going to click on Demo. And at this point I can click on the student and then go in and view the assignment as it's working. So you're going to notice that the teacher is assigned commenting or suggesting level access. So this is the comment level permission in Google Drive. I also have viewing rights. So if I just type somewhere on the document, the student has the option then over here on the side to accept or reject. So in most cases this isn't exactly the most helpful way of adding feedback unless you really are giving maybe scaffolding to an essay. You're going to suggest the way to begin a sentence or begin a paragraph, something along those lines, and then the student could take that writing suggestion and accept it, and then it would become part of the document. Typically the way that I've worked with teachers in using the commenting features is to either come up to Insert and Comment, or to use the keyboard shortcut Control-Alt-M. So if I were to highlight these words, do Control-Alt, oops, did Control-Alt-Delete, do Control-Alt-M, then I can add a comment onto the side, and the student will see it, and then typically, if the student has responded to it, they can resolve it. Those comments end up here in the comment history and can be reevaluated if needed. But one of the things that happens in this works pretty well for the draft phase of things. The teacher can get into the documents, view what's happening. But once the student turns the document in, the status of that document is going to change so that the student now has only viewing rights. So I'm going to close this and reopen it. You'll notice that the student will not be able to type. In fact, because I've just done this recently, it says that access is denied because the permissions have changed. So let's view that now. The student can see that I am in the document. The permissions for the teacher now have changed. The teacher doesn't have commenting rights. The teacher has full editing rights and can go in and mark up the document however they want. They can highlight text, they can move things around, they can add comments, etc. The one problem that I've found is that adding comments during this phase, so if I do my Control-Alt-M and add a comment here, while it's been turned in, the student sees nothing. and cannot view those comments at all. If the student were to unsubmit the assignment, those comments would become visible again. And conversely, if the teacher, after making those comments, chooses to return the assignment, then the student can view those comments. So let me show you now. I'm going to go over here and refresh the screen for our student account. Sometimes it takes a couple of seconds for it to catch up, so it's still showing view only here even though I've returned it on this side. So let's try that again. Okay, and now we can see the student has full editing rights again. And here is the comment. Again, over here now for our teacher, instead of having full editing rights, the teacher reverts back to having suggesting or commenting rights. So here are my concluding thoughts on the workflow, and a lot of this is going to depend on the grade level that you're working at. If you want to provide that formative feedback during drafting phase, or even to provide that feedback as your final assessment of the work, but not limit students from seeing that feedback in real time all the way through the process, I suggest not using the turn-in feature. While having students turn in is nice in terms of notification, it really doesn't give you a whole lot of additional features. It does let you have full editing rights, but I find that the suggesting mode, being able to type in what you'd like the student to have written or adding comments into the side, is sufficient. So not having full editing rights isn't really all that valuable. And even while it's not turned in, you have the option to go in and issue a grade at any point. So you're not limited to grading the assignment, you're not limited to assessing the assignment or providing feedback on the document if the student does not turn it in. However, if you were doing a longer writing project, or if you're at the secondary level and having a firm, kind of hard turn-in date is important, you can have students use that turn-in feature and then also use the unsubmit feature if they need to. The thing about this is that with Google Drive, there's always this time stamping. So if I click here on See Submission History, this is going to just continue to grow and change as that process goes. So if the student turns it in and then unsubmits it, that will show up here in the submission history. And it's time stamped and dated, so I can always say to a student, you turn this in after the due date time, and you unsubmitted it at a certain point, so I'm only going to accept the draft that you had from that previous version, and you can go into the revision history to do that. Turning it in may have some other value to it that I haven't quite discovered yet, but I just wanted to point out some of these nuances that are kind of occurring in terms of how the permissions change on the document and how that turn-in button might have some advantages and some disadvantages. I'm sure that this is going to change over time as Google starts to tweak Google Classroom, but hopefully for those of you who are early adopters and trying out this tool right now, this little tutorial will give you some insight into what's happening in that turn-in process.